Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and Blizzard recently has been doing a little bit more clarification on horrific visions as well as the legendary cloak. In this video, I want to cover two of the most asked questions that a lot of people find confusing. Patch 8.3 introduced a lot of new systems to keep track of, so I'm not surprised that anybody has confusion about keeping up with everything. So hopefully this video will be able to clear up any misconceptions that anybody has had about the cloak or horrific visions and the reward structure. I am going to separate this video into two parts, and I am going to have timestamps on the screen. If you have only part that you really care about and you find relevant, then skip to that. Otherwise, enjoy the video. So let's start off with some of the misconceptions on how to level your legendary cloak. Now, Legendary Cloak is going to be leveled through Horrific Visions, and there's specific requirements as to what needs to be done as you level your cloak. And this is something that I deeply care about as someone who is going to be raiding and someone who wants to get ahead of the curve of everybody, try to start doing the most damage in my guild, trying to get through some of the tough boss fights, and having an upgraded cloak will allow me to equip more corruption gear. It'll give me better stats as I upgrade it. So knowing how to do it properly and not failing horrific visions is going to be very, very important. So this is what we know so far about the legendary cloak and how you can level it. From anywhere between rank 2 and 5, all you have to do is join a horrific vision and slay the leader of whatever horrific vision you're in. So in Orgrimmar, you go slay Thrall. In Stormwind, you go slay Alleria. And that's it. And that's all you have to do for rank 5. It is a very good idea to go out and try to explore other areas of that vision to see how far your character can go, to see if you are able to tackle other objectives. It is a very good idea to test out the waters because eventually you'll have to start exploring further inside of horrific visions. You don't need to commit yourself to going in and slaying an extra boss or a mini boss and buffing up Alleria and Thrall, but it's a good idea to practice some of those fights, to practice some of those encounters just so you're prepared and ready for all the mechanics. Because from rank 6 to 11, you have to slay at least one extra enemy in the corrupted or lost areas of a horrific vision. The way that horrific visions are set up, there is the base area, there is the corrupted area, and then there's the lost area. In the corrupted area, your sanity is going to be draining faster than the base area. You'll have other effects to deal with as different debuffs will start attacking you, and enemies are generally going to get tougher. In the lost area, this will be the hardest part of the horrific visions. These drain more sanity than corrupted areas, enemies are far tougher, and the challenges should be quite up there. Expect yourself to really get lost in the lost areas, and when you're exploring while your cloak is low, I would try not to really poke into lost areas nearly as often. Or at least until your cloak is upgraded. So your cloak is at level 5. To get your cloak from level 6 to 11, you will have to go and clear a mini boss inside of a corrupted area or a lost area. And that's it. Even if you were to fail the horrific vision, as long as you cleared a corrupted or lost area, you'll still get the upgrade for your cloak. Essentially, you do want to go and get the goodies by defeating Thrall. However, if for some reason you're struggling and you don't have enough sanity at all, maybe you're not playing the most optimized class, let's say you don't have any other friends to log on and help you with, all you need to do is struggle your way all the way to corrupted or a lost area, defeat the boss, and essentially you did the bare minimum in order to upgrade your cloak. Of course, your rewards are not going to be as good as killing Thrall or Alleria, at least you will still gain that upgrade. Now, if you're trying to get your cloak from rank 12 to 15, you will most likely will need to venture into the lost area. As of doing research right now, there's no 100% confirmed guarantee that's what you'll need to do. However, if we were to take what the last rank needed for some of the requirements just to venture into corrupted or lost, this one is most likely going to force you to go straight to lost and complete whatever objective is needed. But exactly the same as rank 6 to 11, most likely all you need to do is venture into the lost, slay the final boss, and even if you don't make it back to Thrall or Alleria, you will still be able to get some sort of reward. The reward most likely being the cloak upgrade. And afterwards, the rank up for your cloaks can still be continued either in horrific visions or inside of raids. So after you get your cloak to rank 15, you can continue upgrading it by diving into horrific visions with a mask active. Masks are going to act as debuffs to add to your experience inside of these horrific visions to make them harder, and will be the modifiers, kind of like affixes inside of a Mythic Plus, in order to make your experience in there more challenging. Or you could simply just go kill N'Zoth on normal, heroic, or mythic. And once you slay N'Zoth, you'll get a item in order to further increase the effectiveness of your cloak. This means if you're someone who does a lot of raiding, all you need to do is go raiding. And if you're someone who doesn't have a raiding group or raiding guild, but you love the challenge that Horrific Visions offer you, then this will be how you'll be continuing to rank up your cloak to again get further inside of Horrific Visions. Now let's talk a little bit about Horrific Visions, or if you skip to this part, let's talk about Horrific Visions and the reward structure that we now know how to get gear from. First of all, Horrific Visions are super popular. I'm so surprised by how many people enjoy the content, and the only thing people want is to be able to dive into them a lot more often. Everybody is trying to see if they can find the best route or figure out the best strategy, and I'm starting to figure out strategies between my rogue, where I get to skip majority of the enemies and then mostly fight bosses, or I get to get on my shaman and actually rotate cooldowns for different trash bags in order to make my run a lot more efficient, and it's been very enjoyable to play. And we all knew that Horrific Visions were supposed to give gear, and they were supposed to be quite lucrative, but how good was the gear supposed to be for Horrific Visions before? We had no idea. A lot of people pegged that Horrific Visions just don't drop your loot, and there was a little bit of a bug in terms of whether it's supposed to be dropping loot or not, but finally Blizzard cleared out any issues on how loot should work inside of Horrific Visions. So they actually put up a chart with objectives and the reward item level you're supposed to get for doing these visions. If you were to do just the vision boss, you will get a 420 item level loot. If you were to do the vision boss and 2 bonus objectives, you get 430. If you do a full clear with 0 masks active, masks being modifiers to make your dungeon run or Horrific Vision done harder, similar to affixes inside of a Mythic Plus, you get a 445. Full clear with 1 mask, 450, and every other mask adds 5 extra item level until 5 masks and full clear gives you 470. Imagine going into solo content and being able to farm up 470 item level pieces of loot in content that would be very similar to difficulty of a mythic raid. You mean there's a bit of content that I can do by myself, and if I'm a really good player, I'm very skilled in my class, and I can tackle on all those different masks and I guess the debuffs and all these different mechanics, and I can be rewarded with actually good loot, sign me up. This is actually some really solid single player or even 2-player, 3-player, 4-player content. And we are also most likely to infer that this is kind of how Shadowlands Tower of Torghast is going to function, just with a little bit more RNG to it and less structure. But very interesting. If Blizzard was able to make Horrific Visions and they're so fun, I am excited for Tower of Torghast. So if you're someone who was trying to get some gear from Horrific Visions, and maybe you've done a Horrific Vision with a boss and 2 bonus objectives, and you have not gotten your 430 item level piece of gear, the next time you do it, it'll definitely unlock. And I cannot wait until I can start farming a bunch of 455s, 460s, 465s for my character. This is so cool and so exciting. And the best part is, I think this is actually possible for players that, let's say you just boosted a character, just joining the Shadowlands hype and patch 8.3 stuff. You just got a character up and running, and you're thinking, is it possible to just gear through Horrific Visions? I think honestly it might be. There's a couple different pillars that go into Horrific Visions that are going to make your experience easier. First of all, getting better gear. Second, player experience in the class, being able to properly play rotation and rotate cooldowns. Third would be the knowledge inside of Horrific Visions. The more you venture, the more you can figure out little knickknacks on how to deal with all the bosses and the easiest strategies in order to survive tough mechanics. But also, it would be the upgrades. The upgrades from your research are going to be very, very important. And if you're someone who is fretting right now that, oh, I'm never going to be able to tackle real high visions, there's going to be upgrades from the research that will give you massive buffs to work for. As you get better gear, maybe dive into a couple normal raids, a couple Mythic Plus dungeons, maybe pick up a few pieces of gear from PvP, you could essentially get a bunch of gear where you could try to min-max Horrific Vision output. I honestly think it would be cool for me to maybe do a challenge, like playing my Windwalker Monk that I just boosted not long ago. I have not stepped a foot inside of a dungeon, inside of a raid, and maybe just take this character and see if I can gear that character strictly or almost strictly through just Horrific Visions, or at least get majority of my main end game gear through Horrific Visions. So that's going to be all the updates we have for all the clarifications that we needed to do. And I believe I'll need to do more updates and clarifications once Season 4 actually rolls out on a Tuesday or Wednesday reset. Season 4 is going to be, again, Mythic Plus updates, PvP updates, world bosses. There's going to be a heroic Warfront added for Darkshore. The raid is going to be out, so it's going to be a lot more content and a lot more updates that will definitely make Horrific Visions even easier to get into. But for now, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed. If you guys got any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below or hit me up on Discord. I'm pretty easy to reach there. The link for that you can find in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully this cleared up a couple of posts, and I'll see all of you in the next video.